Hey guys, why the fuck are you watching this? Well, my name's Cam Cole, I'm a rock musician, and what am I doing in this room? I was born in this room, and spent my childhood here.
That's it.
That's it.
That's short and sweet. Well, I'm Jesse. I came after him. You know, about 12 and a half years ago, this was the Lazy J headquarters where I was making amps.
I grew up here when I was a kid, and then Jesse came here and built these amazing amps in this very room. Right. So not only did I buy my first rock guitar, which I now use on stage, which is this,
which I have the honor of holding right now.
And I bought for £4 in a car boot sale down the road in Shelford.
I want to know if it had this handle.
It did, man. I put that on. It just stopped me knocking down the volume control when I was thrashing it, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you know what? There is a memory I remember. My bed was, I think it was over here. So I remember, like, yeah, I was asked that the moment when we walked in here, but like, I think maybe my bed was over there. No, it definitely was over here because I remember I rolled off one night and I went underneath the bed, and my parents couldn't find me the next day. And I was underneath the bed, and they nearly called the police to figure out where I was.
Did you know? They were looking for you.
I think I might have done.
That's fantastic.
I think I might have done. Yeah, that was one memory I had. I remember just like, do you know what? I remember sitting here with that guitar when it was a bass and trying to work out how to fucking play it. That's a good memory.
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember trying to work.
See, that's brilliant. None of that happened in this room. There's an energy in this room, and you know what? I don't know what it is, but you know what? Why did I pick this room to build the amps in? When we moved in here, it was like, okay, there were 3 bedrooms. And somehow this one was the one to go into. You know, I don't know. It was dark. It was. It's got all this foliage outside.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a cave to me, and I liked it. You know, so you know, it's nice to be, you know, here one more time. Just to be able to see the room again the way it was when you know, when I first walked in here.
Jesse builds these amps that we're sitting on. These are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have one for my third album.
Yeah.
Something I really need. I'm bringing this guitar into my third album, which is like an open G sounding thing, and it needs this sound. We were playing it before, and
and we were playing it loud. The neighbors know now. The neighbors know we're back.
I bet you've annoyed many neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, they keep telling me how much they liked it, but I think they're being polite.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I wish I could answer that. Is that a trick question?
Yeah.
It's a trap. To be honest, I don't know. Well, I was told this story before, but you know, a good friend of mine once came here with an amp that he brought from a friend. You know, like the friend had bought this. This was some kind of Fender amp, and I can't remember what, like some twin thing. I think one of those red knob twin amps. And he wasn't happy with it, and he asked if I could maybe make it sound like something more like what he would like. And we were fooling around. We were sitting here. I remember that. Jones was sitting right there. I was sitting here, and I was making changes to the amp. And while he was playing, he said, "Okay, play that again, make some changes, and then we would compare." And after a while, he said, "This is beginning to sound more and more like a Lazy J amp." And I was like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, you must have a sound in your head that you instinctively go for."
Yeah.
And I never thought about it that way, but there's probably some truth in it. You know, that in my mind, I'm happy when certain things happen, when I feel certain things, right? I'm like, yeah, that's it, you know, and I think that's what I've done with the amps. You know, that's what I carry on doing, you know, because it's the only thing I know how to do.
It's so, you know it when you hear it. From a musician's perspective with Jesse's amps, you know it when you hear it. That's what it comes down to. And that's with all great bits of kit and great records and great music, you know it when you hear it, man. You know, it's the same songwriting, you know it when you hear it, it's just there. It's like, yeah, that's the one. It's not something in particular. I mean, I'd say that Jesse's amps break up a little bit more than the Fenders and all that, but it's not night and day. You know, whatever it just is, you know, and it fucking sounds great, and that's why so many great musicians use it.
And the thing is, there isn't a universal thing that's best for everyone, you know. Because what is it that connected you to, like the first record you ever heard that where you thought, oh my God, this is amazing. That's what I want to do. And you knew that was your future. What was that? What about that particular record connected with you? I don't know what that is. I've got my own, you've got yours. Everybody has their own thing. And that's kind of similar with the amps and the sound and everything. You come up with whatever it is that makes you feel like, yeah, that's me. This is me. And some people, like what I've done, because I built the first one of these I built for myself, because I needed an amp, because I left all my gear in the States. And then someone said, can you make me one? And so it just kind of went. Other people who heard what I heard in what I built asked me to make them one, and that's kind of the way it's been ever since. As long as people keep asking, I'll make another one. So I'll make one for you. There you go.
What a fucking coincidence.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And well, it's because whatever happened. When we first met, it was everything was wide open. I mean, I hadn't been building amps for all that long either. At that time. Now it's years down the road. You've come a long way. And so everything's a lot more established, so it feels a lot more like, wow, isn't it incredible? But it didn't feel that incredible at the time. It feels incredible now to me. Oh, it's fantastic every time. What I really love is that customers of mine started posting videos on their Facebook pages, and they would come through on my Facebook page, and they'd go like, man, I saw this guy playing Birmingham, and he was kicking ass, and he should be famous and stuff. And all I get is Cameron, And I thought that was awesome, because I thought, it's coming together for you. Yeah. Because I've been following it from the beginning.
Yeah, totally.
And when that came together, and we kind of connected it from time to time. Down here.
Well, I come down to ask you, to meet up with you and hang out and ask advice. Where do I start with this music career business? You know what I mean? Like it's interesting. It's mad must be mad for you to know that this is I built my amps in the room it was born in.
Yeah, I think it's fucking awesome. This was my bedroom. When the first time you came here, and you kind of looked at the workshop, and you said, this was my bedroom.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's fucking awesome.
Did you know it was my bedroom?
No, you told me when you came here the first time. I don't know when that was, like 10 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Good question.
I'm not sure. Personally, I think it's what I heard when I grew up. Like the songs and the records that I listened to. There was a certain sound that I really liked without knowing exactly what that was. And it wasn't until I fooled around with it myself, and then, I found the sound that I had heard on the records that I wanted to recreate the first time. So I'd had a PV Bandit or whatever in the 70s. I had a Music Man amp and tried several other things. And the first time I plugged into a Fender amp and turned it right up, that's when I heard the sound. And so from then on, I always, I felt that what I wanted to hear was in the Fender territory. And then I got into vintage Fenders and stuff, and, like old gear, because I saw that there's an album cover, the back cover on Harvest, which it's got like Neil Young and the whole band, like set up in the barn on hay bales and everything, all these old vintage amps all around, and I love that. Oh man, I was jonesing for old Fender amps then, like in a big way, and then the first old Fender amp like that I got was I forget, still in the 70s, a Fender Showman, 63 Showman. And then when I moved to England in 1985, I found an old Bassman, 1961 Bassman in Denmark Street for £65. And I still have that. And I think that's the funkiest looking amp that was ever built. Anyway, so that's my story about guitars now. I don't know about you.
Well, for me, yeah. Just a question, is that Bassman? Is that for bass? Is that for bass guitar?
It was originally intended to be for bass,
Yeah.
Because Fender had invented the electric bass.
Yeah.
But
it sounded great with the guitar.
Yeah, it sounded better with the guitar.
Yeah.
And so it became like a real sort of go-to, holy grail kind of amp for guitar players.
I mean, that's what I do. I usually play through bass amps and have done for years, especially as a one-man band as well, because you just get that extra bottom end to it, And it's funny, like in a studio, I'm going valves and I want to be pushing air, you know what I mean? I'm going for that sound live. It's always been difficult until I'm sure that when I get one of these, I'm going to be using this live because of the attenuator. But it's always been that problem with valve amps of without an attenuator, getting feedback in the room, that kind of thing.
Well, especially with your guitars like the hollow.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. With the hollow guitars, it's just
and you're sitting, so close to the amp,
That's it. That's it, man. So it's always been an issue of getting the sound. You've got to crank it up and then you get the feedback or else it's that problem. But
we'll come up something really good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm keen. But yeah, like back to the question, like, what's a great guitar sound? I mean, it's interesting. It's when you think about great guitar sounds, is it? I mean, a lot to do is the tonality, all that kind of stuff. But I feel a great guitar sound comes from the riff. First off, the riff has to be great from a songwriting perspective, and then once you've got that, then what is the best thing for that riff? There's lots of different options out there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like if you're going for something that's a bit more traditionally based, then I guess it would be these kind of amps, with the valve technology, I mean, I think this will work on every single sound, but then certain sounds are more of a heavy kind of nature, towards nu metal and that kind of thing. Maybe you want something with fuzz and something a bit more computerized, that digital sound. But it all depends. Yeah. It all depends on the riff, man.
Coincidence. Well, it's coincidence that when they created amplification and the only way to do things with electronics in the very beginning was tubes, valve tubes. And there's something that happens into a signal as it travels through the vacuum of the tube that creates harmonics that are so beautifully balanced in a way that cannot. I find it hard to explain. Well, I mean, you can read about it. There's all kinds of technical explanations, but when you hear it, it's a perfect combination of odd and even order harmonics that create a complexity to that a lot of people find. It's like 1 + 1 = 3, where the overtones and the harmonics that are produced by the tubes make a bigger sound than the fundamental of the note. So, that is what. And then I think, people have tried to recreate that with solid state technology and digital technology and stuff, but I hope they'll wait another 20 years or so before they get it together. I like old because I'm old. So,
come from that era.
And that's it. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, like for me, again, it's a bit of both, and then, again, same thing I said before, is it depends on the song and the riff. I think when I grew up here in this room, Limp Bizkit were releasing Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water. Linkin Park just released Hybrid Theory, and that's all. I mean, like it is a bit vintage, but it's also digital. That's when things were starting to be digitized. So I got a taste for that at a young age. But then as I got older, I got into the White Stripes, got into the Black Keys, and then they got me into the older stuff, the real old stuff. And then I thought, wow, that's fucking awesome, man. So my whole career in music has always been trying to blend those two styles and trying to meet them together,
Right, and that's where you come up with your own original thing.
The sound,
by pursuing, by ruling nothing out, and just kind of go this way, that way, mix it together, maybe come up with something new.
Totally.
And honestly, that's great advice for the world in general. I mean, it's not just about music, I think stay open.
Yeah.
And blend whatever you find into your own thing.
Absolutely.
I think that's the most important advice I could give anyone, including myself.
You know, that's what they say about old recordings and stuff like that, the mistake. They don't have that in recordings nowadays, it's all auto-tuned corrected.
Yeah, you don't want, you know, when you listen to old records, and I love that, sometimes you can hear, you know, even on the fucking studio albums, you know, like in there, you hear yelling in the background, you know, they're so turned on, or they're saying, you know, they're just talking to each other while they're playing. You can hear it, put headphones on, you can actually hear it, and I love that.
Yeah.
To me, that is, it goes beyond just the music, it's the vibe in the room. And, you know, Steven Tyler said it beautifully. He said, when you put people in a room, you conjure up the spirits of the moment.
Yeah.
You can't do that on your own. You got to put the people in the room. And then magic happens. It's an energy that flows between y'all, and it is bigger than the sum of its parts. And that's what I believe in. That's what I love, and that's what I look for in the world all the time.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's an individual experience. No, I don't think it's ever been dead. It's always been alive, even in the 80s. And I know we've had those discussions. The 80s was a disappointing decade for me, but it was always there. You know, like, I mean, I know new things came along that I couldn't relate to at the time, but rock and roll, the spirit of it, you know, the spirit of the visceral kind of, the piss and vinegar of rock and roll and everything, that was always there. You know, because I think it's not just in music. Rock and roll is sort of an all-encompassing thing. You know, you can find it everywhere.
Yeah, it's cultural, and I guess it comes from a non-conformist kind of attitude, I suppose.
Yeah, and that is where it's dead. You know, when mom and dad are now paying for your fucking tuition at the local music college, as opposed to you slamming the door. You know, once upon a time, rock and roll defined you. You were like an angry kid, and you go like, you know, you go to your room, you slam the door and crank your tunes because you're pissed off with your parents. And now your dad's downstairs fucking cranking the same tune.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Like, what the hell is up with that?
It's a problem nowadays. Yeah.
So it's not dead, it's just different. It's harder to define yourself if you can't separate yourself from those you're supposed to define yourself from.
Yeah.
You know?
I felt like
that was a big philosophical.
I caught the tail end of that because like rock and roll had just gotten heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. And when I was a kid, it was new metal, and it was like Slipknot, Korn, Cannibal Corpse are coming out. It's like, that's too far. I'm not sure. You know, it's like it's just always going heavier and heavier. So you were still able to piss off your parents with the music we had then. And now, I'm not sure what's happened. It's different, but it's still there. It's definitely still there.
Yeah.
Man. People still vibe with it. You know.
Yeah, I know. It was probably, you know, I bet. You know, it was alive. I mean, rock and roll, you know, came, you know, into being in the 20th century officially. The term was coined, but I think the attitude and what it means, that was probably there 1,000 years ago, or even at the beginning of time. You know, when people were sitting around the fire and, you know, beating each other up.
Yeah.
You know,
where did it begin? That's the question. You know.
Or did it?
Or did it? Yeah.
Think about that. Yeah, I think, you know, isn't it funny? One thing that I would say, I love connecting everything to everything else. And to me, everything is sort of spiritual. And there seems to be like a spirit flowing through everything. So when I build amps, then somehow they connect me with people, and then people connect me with their stories and if you can travel far and wide, like, you know, around the world because of social media and whatnot, you connect with people and their stories and their energy and everything in a big way. And somehow I feel something from that. It's hard to put into words, but I don't know what it is. I call that spirituality or something. And I think that's what makes everything good.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I look for. Yeah. And tequila. I don't know, I actually cut that out. I don't want to talk about tequila. I say it almost every time. You know, every time I wrap one of these things up, you know, I was talking about tequila, and, you know, let's talk about something else. So that was off the record.
But yeah, it's interesting. I hear what you're saying. It's almost like you kind of felt there's a bit of an energy in this room, but maybe it's not the room. Maybe it's just the journey and the divine intersection. You know. Yeah, it's funny how things work out, man.
Yeah, totally.
You've got to question it sometimes, you know.